Welcome back to the Wind Up with Will, everyone. This is your host, Will, here with another episode to talk about sports. In today's video, we're going to talk about college football, again, the college football playoffs, as well as the FCS championship, which is going on right now. I was hoping to get a video out before then, but I forgot that they were playing today. Currently, it is North Dakota State and Montana State playing in the FCS championship game. Now, coming into this game, I would have said North Dakota State would win. They're who I not only picked, but would root for. They're from the same conference as Murray State, my alma mater. And I'm not just pulling for them because they're from the same football conference. They're in different conferences in other sports, but same football conference. But I actually got to watch them play this year, and they could move the ball at will. Like they looked amazing on offense. They just phenomenal team. So like they would be my pick, and I think they were ranked number one or number two at the time when I saw them play at Murray. So I would have said they would win this game. Currently, they are winning it 28-25 over Montana State. Montana State's the only remaining undefeated team in college football at 15-0. North Dakota State's currently winning 28-25 with 11 minutes and 25 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Get over to ESPN and watch it if you haven't already. By the time this video uploads, that game will probably be over. It's in the fourth quarter. My upload times are slow, unfortunately, with my internet, but it is what it is. I hope you do watch that game. But before I go any further, I want to say I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I forgot to say that in my last video, and it was more around the holidays then, so I hope you and your family had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now, on to the college football playoffs of FBS, the Football Bowl subdivision. So I could go on in depth and talk about some of the other bowls, but there's a lot of bowl games that have happened, and I want to try and make this video short so I can upload it pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead into the college football playoff games most recently that were the quarterfinals. And that was this past weekend, or past week, I should say, on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and the day after New Year's. Now, the first game was New Year's Eve. It was between Penn State and Boise State. Penn State won this game 31-14. The game, the score looks a little lopsided, but it was close for a while. It was 14-7 through the majority of the second quarter until Penn State kicked a field goal at the end of the first half to make it 17-7. Then Boise State scored a touchdown to make it 17-14, and it felt like they maybe had a chance to get back in this. They were struggling to move the ball, but they couldn't run the ball. GNT was struggling to run it at times. He still got over 100 yards, but came up, I believe, 27 or 28 yards short of Barry Sanders' all-time rushing record for single season rushing record. He came up like 27 or 28 yards short, unfortunately. I would have liked to see him beat that. Just a cool thing to see. A phenomenal season for GNT. But they kind of got back in the game even though they were struggling to run the ball at times. And then Penn State scored a touchdown to make it a 10-point game, 24-14, and then they scored a late touchdown to put the game finally away at 31-14. I give Boise State credit for hanging in for so long in that game. Penn State looked clearly like they were the better team on defense and offense, but Boise State hung in there and showed why they were deserving of being in this playoffs. Just great season for them. Came up a bit short, though, in the Fiesta Bowl. Now, the other bowl games were supposed to be on New Year's Day, but unfortunately, a tragic event of terrorism, an act of terrorism, occurred in New Orleans where the Sugar Bowl was to be played. I believe there was 14 people that lost their lives. It just a horrible tragedy. My thoughts and prayers go out to all the families that are involved there, the people of New Orleans. You know, just a horrible situation there. And so it's totally understandable why they would move the bowl game back a day. Not just for the tragedy having occurred that early that morning, but also just for the safety of the players and anyone else who was in New Orleans. There was talks and fears that there might be there might be explosive devices, or there might be someone else that the driver was not acting alone, so that they needed to take the extra steps and precautions to make sure that the Sugar Bowl was going to be a safe venue for people to go to, and that the people of New Orleans were going to be safe for another big event there. So it makes sense why they pushed that game back a day. So that game, the Sugar Bowl, took place on the 2nd. But before I get to that, I'm going to get to the games on New Year's Day. So New Year's Day, we had Texas and Arizona State. That was the game that kicked off, I believe, noon. That will go down as one of the greatest college football games of all time. It was a classic game. Texas looked like they were going to pull away with it. They were ahead late in the game, 24-8. There were with 10 minutes left in the game, and it looked like they've got this thing. But out of nowhere, Cam Scadaboo threw a 42-yard touchdown pass on 4th down. They then converted a 2-point conversion. By the way, Cam Scadaboo is their running back. It's Arizona State's running back. They ran a trick play, and the running back threw a 42-yard touchdown pass. They then convert the 2-point conversion, makes it 24-16. It's a 2-point, or it's a touchdown and a 2-point conversion game. It's a 1-score game all of a sudden. And then with 5 minutes left in the game, Cam Scadaboo ran it in. They got another 2-point conversion, this time with Cam Scadaboo converting it. Makes it a tied game. We go, and both teams at the end had chances to win the game. Texas had a field goal attempt with a few minutes left that they missed, wide right. Arizona State gets the ball. There maybe should have been a targeting call on Texas I believe a flag was thrown, and then they picked it up and said that it wasn't targeting. And so, that is the controversy. Go watch that play if you haven't seen it. Have your own opinion on that. I don't really know how to think. I can kind of see it both ways. That maybe it shouldn't have been targeting, but I also understand the reason why people think it should be targeting. So I understand both sides. I didn't really have a dog in the fight of who wins in that game, so I was just enjoying the great game. Arizona State can't do anything, so they punt. Texas gets another attempt. They kick it off the uprights. Another missed field goal. Goes to double overtime where Texas finally scores. And actually, they had to have a conversion on Arizona State scored a touchdown first in overtime, and then Texas had to convert, I believe it was 4th and 13 for a touchdown in the first overtime. Then they got the ball to start the second overtime, scored, got the 2-point conversion, and then Arizona State threw an interception to end the game. Just phenomenal game. Go watch the highlights of that game. It was awesome. I'm glad I watched that one. Absolutely terrific. Now the next game, it was probably the most anticipated game of the day, and it was probably the biggest letdown of any of them. Ohio State blew out Oregon 41-21. Now, don't let the score deceive you. That game was more lopsided than that. It was what was the score at halftime? It was 34-8 at halftime, and it was 34-0 at one point. Oregon scored a touchdown and 2-point conversion right as time expired to end the first half. This was a blowout. I was not expecting this. Oregon is who I picked to win the national championship before the playoffs started. They just have a really tough team. They've got a great quarterback that was in the running for the Heisman. But Ohio State is showing why they were one of the favorites coming into this season, and they spent a ton of NIL money. And that NIL money is coming through for them. And with 2 huge blowouts in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, phenomenal win for them. They're moving on to the semifinals to face Texas. Now, on the other side of the bracket, our last game was moved back to the 2nd due to the terrorist attack in New Orleans. Sorry, my camera is not focusing very well. I hope that's focused well. Yeah, it looks better. Now, the last game was the Sugar Bowl. I'm sorry, I should have said the names of those bowls. So Penn State, Boise State was in the Fiesta Bowl. Texas and Arizona State played in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Oregon and Ohio State played in the Rose Bowl. And Notre Dame and Georgia played in the All-State Sugar Bowl. Now, that, as clearly as you can see, I'm a Notre Dame fan. I have been for a little over 10 years now. I was super excited to watch this game. I actually went to a college basketball game earlier, so I had to watch it recorded. And it was going on while I was at work too, so I had to wait late at night to watch it. But I was super excited for this game. I said Notre Dame would win. I said without Carson Beck that Georgia was not going to be the same team. Their quarterback is more unexperienced. The team is going to have to do more around him for them to win rather than him carry them. And this is not a Georgia team from 2 or 3 years ago. This is a Georgia team that has some clear gaps in it, and it showed. Notre Dame dominated the game with the offensive line, with the defensive line. They got pressure on the quarterback. They got turnovers. They did what they needed to do. They scored on special teams, kickoff to start the second half, score a touchdown on that, score points off of a turnover. Their offense scored. They made field goals. Notre Dame executed all three phases of the game in that. And that's not what I said would happen. I thought it would be a close game. Notre Dame maybe wins by 3 points. But Notre Dame dominated this game. They won 23-10 over Georgia. And as I said after this game, I don't want to hear any more talk about how the SEC is more dominant than all these other teams, all these other conferences, that the team that finishes middle of the SEC would dominate the Big Ten or the ACC. I don't want to hear that anymore. I think the college football playoffs have shown that. Ohio State dominated Tennessee. Notre Dame pretty much controlled the game against Georgia. Texas, it took them 2 overtimes to beat Arizona State. Alabama got embarrassed in their bowl game against Michigan. South Carolina, who I heard everyone banging the drum on should be in, lost to Illinois in their bowl game. Now, I don't know. I think South Carolina was missing a couple players in that game, but still, as much as I hear about, well, Illinois is not any good, but they beat South Carolina. They beat this dark horse team from the SEC that everyone wanted to be in. Alabama got embarrassed by Michigan, who I heard and I also know is not very good this year. And this Michigan team beat Ohio State. Maybe the Big Ten is really good all the way through and through compared to the SEC. And that's not to say the SEC isn't good. I think the SEC is a very good conference. And over the last 20 years, it probably has been the best conference. But two things can be true at the same time. It can be the best conference over the last 20 years, and it can be not the best conference this year. I think that that's fair to say. It's as someone who's not an SEC fan, it can get a little annoying though when you hear of people banging on the drum of how great the SEC is. And as we've seen this year, there of the final four teams in the college football playoff, the only SEC team left is Texas, which was in the Big 12 a year ago. So it's an odd year. The NIL money, the transfer portal, and a 12-team playoff has created these situations. It's going to be interesting to see if this is something that happens every year, where it is just kind of a random crapshoot and different teams arise, or is it based on NIL money? Does it vary from year to year? I think we will see variance from year to year. Maybe next year the SEC is dominant and Georgia or Alabama or someone runs the table and goes undefeated, wins the whole thing. Maybe we see that next year, or maybe we see a team from the Big 12 do it. You never know. I think the NIL and the transfer portal have opened up a lot of opportunities. I think, and I'll do a video on this eventually, I would like to see some changes with the NIL and the transfer portal. I think there's a lot of unfair things with it, and just it's unfair to smaller teams as well as even the big teams too, that you have no guarantee of having a team the next year. Your entire team could leave overnight, and it's not good for college sports as a whole to have that. So I think something needs to be done. But getting off my soapbox there, so after the quarterfinals, that sets up with our semifinal matchups. In the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic on January 10th at 6:30 is Texas versus Ohio State, the 5 seed versus the 8 seed, just how we predicted it, folks, or how everyone predicted it. And then in the Capital One Orange Bowl, that'll be in Miami, and the Cotton Bowl's in Dallas, or actually Arlington in the Cowboys Stadium. The Capital One Orange Bowl in Miami is Notre Dame and Penn State. Notre Dame, the 7 seed. Penn State, the 6 seed. I think this is a great Final Four, a great semifinals. A lot of powerhouse college football teams here: Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State. It's great. I think this 12-team playoff has been great for college football. I think anyone who has watched these games sees that and enjoys it. And I think it's going to eventually lead to more playoff expansion, which I think is perhaps, which not only, not that I think is perhaps needed, I think it is needed to have all of the conference champions in at some point. But this has been a terrific college football season with the playoffs. Even if Notre Dame doesn't win it all, I'm happy. We beat Georgia. I can, I was not expecting us to make it to the semifinals with the draw we got. I was hoping we would, and even kind of predicting that we would. But there was part of me that was like, I don't know if we can beat Georgia. But coming into the year, if you would have told me Notre Dame makes it to the semifinals, I would have been very happy. I think that was actually I have my notebook here, so I can go back and look. I think that was my preseason prediction, but I had very favorable draw against Boise State, and I believe who did I say the other team? What? Maybe Utah? Did I say you? I think I said Utah. Let's go find my predictions. Yes, here's my preseason predictions. I found them. I had Notre Dame facing Liberty in the first round and then facing Utah to reach the semifinals and lose to Georgia. So I did have us facing Georgia in this, and I forgot I had Florida State making the playoffs in the preseason. That was an unfortunate pick. But it's been a terrific year, terrific college football season. I think I'm picking Notre Dame to win it all. I think it's going to be Notre Dame and Ohio State in the championship. I think that would be an all-time classic game. I think the semifinals are going to be some terrific games as well. I think Texas is going to actually keep Ohio State interesting, close game. I think Notre Dame Penn State is a very even matchup, too, like hard-nosed physical teams with good defense, good offensive line. I think Notre Dame has the slight edge, though. I think having to beat Georgia is a bigger feeling of we're a Titan Slayer than Penn State beating Boise State and SMU in the first two rounds. So I think Notre Dame is very well coached, and I'm picking Notre Dame to win the whole thing over Ohio State. That's my pick now. Oregon was the team that I feared. Ohio, I will say I do fear Ohio State a little bit, but I'm super excited for the playoff game or for these semifinal games this week. Let me know your thoughts down below. Who's winning the college football playoffs? Who is your favorite team? Have you liked the college football playoffs this year? What would you do differently in terms of seeding the teams or the playoffs as a whole? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.